Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you for the DeKalb County Library System, and we are going to make a station bracelet today. And basically, there's a very loose definition of what a station bracelet is. It's basically a chain that's attached to different points, focal points on a bracelet. We're doing a one center focal piece. I think that's the true definition of a station bracelet. It starts, the bracelet part itself attaches to your center focal, which is going to be wire wrapped. Oh, it got switched around. It's going to be wire wrapped, and then we're going to attach a chain to it. And then we're going to create our own pretty little clasp on the back. Very easy, very simple. The only things that you really need are, this is really neat because I used one of these rhombus beads and it's pretty on either side. If I have it on the side that's wrapped, that's pretty. There's enough detail on it that if it flips over, it's still gorgeous. And so if you get a kit, you're gonna get a couple of these beads because I want you to have enough to make 2 bracelets. But what I thought we would do, I'm using 22 gauge wire today, simply because these focal beads, these mother of pearl beads are so pretty that I didn't want to cover it up with a whole lot of wire. And the one that I'm doing for the video today is very coincidentally the same color as my top. Of course, I don't make these for myself. So what I am using is 22 gauge wire today, but you can also use 20 gauge wire. I probably would stick with that because this is very springy, summery, lightweight. It doesn't have to be very heavy at all. So 22 to 20 gauge wire, possibly 18 gauge wire. That's going to be your choice. You're going to need jump rings. I'm using both open and closed jump rings. You're going to need a length of chain and your focal piece. That's it. I'm actually using 2 sizes of wire because I'm using 22 gauge wire to wrap my bead, and then I'm using 20 gauge wire to make my clasp because it needs to be a little heavier. If you go 20 gauge wire, you can just go 20 gauge all the way through, and it depends on your bead. These are drilled quite small, so I needed something that would go through, that would actually fit through the bead itself. And 20 gauge wire was a little heavy, a little big. 22 gauge wire just fit the bill. I'm trying to put it through so you can see. Yeah, 20 gauge wire just fits. 22 gauge wire just fits. So that's what I'm working with today for that. For the clasp, it needs to be a little heavier, so you'll have 20 gauge wire. So those of you who get kits, you'll have 2 beads in there. You'll have chain, wire, 2 types of wire, one for your clasp, one for your the wrap your bead. You'll be able to tell the difference because the wire that you use to wrap your bead is going to be a little thinner than the one you use to wrap your clasp, to make your clasp. So we've got 2 types of wire, chain, 2 beads, and jump rings. That's what you're going to get in your kit. And the jump rings will be both open and closed. And you will be able to tell the difference between the open and closed jump rings because the closed jump rings are slightly thicker and heavier than the open jump rings. We're using 6 millimeter because it doesn't need to be any bigger than this. We want this to be kind of a delicate bracelet, and it doesn't need to be very heavy. So let's get down here to the other camera. Oh, and you just need your usual tools, your round nose pliers, your square or chain nose pliers, your cutters. Things flying around here, so forgive me if I do that. your cutters and a ruler so that you can measure everything out. So let's get down here to the other camera. I want to show you how quick and easy this is to do so that you can make a whole bunch of them. Okay, so turn the light on. There we go. Okay, so what we're going to do is take our little bead. See how that it's got that swirly pattern in there? I just love it. And I wanted to make sure I didn't cover it up with wire that was too heavy. That's why we're using this. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is measure out my wire to wrap my bead to create my focal for the station. So what I'm doing, what I would suggest, measure your bead. Mine is about 7/8 of an inch. I'm just going to call it 1 inch, and you're going to need enough wire to go through the bead because it's a center drill. So I need enough to go through the bead. So I'm going to say 1 inch. Then I need 2 strands to go to create my wrap over the bead. So that's 2 more inches. So that's 3 inches so far. I calculate 1 inch for each loop. That's 5. 1 inch for each wrap. That's 7. And I give myself just an extra inch just to be safe. So give yourself enough to go. So measure what you need to go through your bead, 2 times across your bead. Give yourself 1 inch for each loop and 1 inch for each wrap. So that's 2 on each side. 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, and add another inch. It's not going to kill you if you have to cut any off. And if you don't have enough, then you're kind of out of luck. You have to start all over. And then look at all the waste that you have there. So I'm going to measure out 8 inches of wire. Okay. And then I'm going to go ahead and slide my wire through my bead to the halfway point. And I have 8 inches, so I need to go to 4. It'd be halfway. So there we go. Here's my 4 inches. Yeah, okay. And then I'm going to bend it back on one side and then bend it toward me on the other side. I want to point something out to you. On these shell beads, what makes them a little bit of a challenge is they're not always drilled perfectly. And if you look closely at this, you can see that this is not directly in the center. Am I going to cry over that? I am not. So I'm just going to work with it. So what I'm going to do is take my pliers and I'm going to create a loop on the top here on this one side. Doesn't have to be huge. So I'm going to go about halfway down my pliers, wrap the tail of my wire around the pliers until I can't go any further right underneath. Then I'm going to open my pliers, rotate them back, clamp down again, and continue my wrap right underneath my pliers. So there's my loop. There's my loop from one side. And then I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. Slide my wire halfway down my pliers. Come on. Wrap the wire around my pliers. Come on, stop that. Wrap the wire around my pliers till it won't go any further. Then open up, rotate the pliers back, and finish my loop. I'm going to check and make sure they both are going the same direction, so they should both be flat. And they should be about the same size. If you can see one that's bigger than the other, decide on what size you want it to be, and then change the one that needs to be either bigger or smaller. Make this one a little bigger, just a tiny bit. There we go. So there are my loops. Now I want to make sure that when I wrap my loop, that the wire that's going across and towards me is on top on both sides. So it's wrapped around, it's coming towards me, and the wire is on top of the loop. Same with the other side. Wrapped around, wire is on top of the loop. And you can see how this is not centered? I can do a little bit of a fix by rotating my loop back a little bit, but there's not really a whole lot you can do with that. And it's not going to make a huge amount of difference. That's what happens when you have things that are natural and organic. Okay, so now what I want to do is wrap my wire around. Just straightening my wire a little bit. I'm going to wrap my wire around and to the back. So I'm going to take my pliers. Again, the wire is on top, coming towards me. I'm going to wrap it around the back and stop on the other side. I'm going to do the same thing here on the other side. Wrap the wire around one time and stop on the other side. Oop, I can see one of these is much longer than the other. Doggone it, Virginia. That's okay. Now I'm going to take my wire. I'm going to kind of move this one out of the way because it's going to drive me nuts otherwise. So I'm going to take my wire and I'm going to bring it over the top of my bead. And I'm just going to create a little bit of a curve over my wire. Just like that. And then I'm going to wrap it around the opposite side. And then I'm going to bring the other wire that's on this side, get that out of the way. I'm going to bring that down beside this wire. So I'm going to bring it down beside the first wire and just curve it around. I have a little kink in there. I'm going to straighten that out because I want this to have the same nice little curve that I have on this one. And it's just off to the side because I don't want it to take over my bead. And plus, because of the way this is drilled, it's kind of off to the side. I'm going to bring that over and wrap it around my loop. So there's my little wrap on top. And then I can make some little adjustments. I can scoot it over a little bit if I want to. Make it a little more curved if I want to. I'm going to use my fingernail to do that. Now, look what I think I did. What did I do here? Oh, no, it's fine. So I'm going to use my fingernail. You can use your pliers if you don't want to ruin your manicure to do some shaping. But this wire is very malleable, very, very soft. So it's really easy to shape it with my nails without doing too much damage. And I'm just trying to make a little bit of a curve. I'm going to bring that down so it's a little bit closer and you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just making a little bit of a graceful curve over here on the side. Nothing big, nothing particularly fancy. It's just kind of going in the opposite direction of the design of my bead. If you can see that, I'm getting a lot of glare from where I'm sitting. Always playing with this thing. Come on, work with me. Somebody told me that means I have too much light there. Okay, so there I have my little curve. And that's all I wanted. It's kind of, here's the curve of my bead, on my shell, and I'm going in the opposite direction. Or you can go in the same direction. It depends on how you want it to look. But now that I've got my little decoration done, I'm ready to just wrap it up and be finished with that. So I just wrap the tail of my wire around my loop a couple of times and see how much I had left. I had 8 inches and I'm going to be cutting off about 2.5. So I had more than I needed, but that's just fine because that way, you know, I could do something around the boom. Why not? No, let's go crazy. It's always something. All right, so I've got a little extra wire here, so why not play a little bit? I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take this longer end and I'm going to put it under the shorter end. And I'm just going to make a little loop. It doesn't have to be much of anything. It's just a way of using up my wire so I don't have to cut it off. And if I don't like it, I'll just cut it off. No biggie. I'm going to bring that around and I'm just going to make a tiny, tiny little spiral. And I'm just holding on to this so it doesn't shift too much. And I'm just making a little, look at that, just a little tiny spiral on the back. And now that way, I have a design on both sides. Let's bring that around. Again, I'm using 22 gauge wire, so it's easy to manipulate. But when it gets too short for me to manipulate with my fingers, I just take my pliers and finish it off. Bring that around. And then I'll just clip off what I don't use. And push that tail under my spiral. Same with this side. Bring it around this much as I can. And then push the tail under so it won't catch on anything. Get under there. I just have a, it looks like a little rose. And again, this is not, this was just last minute. I have extra wire. What can I do with it? So I've got just a little flower there, a little rose, if you want to call it that. Just a little spiral. Neat, huh? There it is. And then on the other side, do I see that sticking out? I do. Get under there. Ah, here we go. Cute. And then what I'm going to do, because this is just straight, I think I'm going to give it a little twist. So I'm going to just grab it with my pliers and get it. Do I want to twist it or do I want to curve it? I'm going to twist it. So now I have a little bit of a twist there, along with my little rose. What do you think? Well, that was kind of inspired. So now I just have a little graceful curve on one side and a flower on the other. So I can wear it on either side. Boom, 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 doesn't matter. Okay, we're finished with our focal piece. I'm finished playing around. I'm sorry, I get a little carried away sometimes. So now, get this refocused again. Okay, so now we're going to just attach our chain. This little part. Just going to put our chain on. Easy peasy. And in order to do that, we just need some jump rings, open and closed, and some chain. So the first thing you want to do is measure your piece here and see how much I have. I've got about 1 1/4 inches. That's the beginning of my measurement. You need to find out what the measurement of your arm is and then build from there. So far I have about 1 1/4, a little over 1 1/4 for my focal piece. Put that to the side. I'm going to grab some jump rings and I'm going to put them on because I know I'm going to need them. So I'm just going to put on a couple of jump rings on the end and then I'm going to remeasure. Now, the proper way to open a jump ring. Put 1 pair of pliers on one side of the opening, which is right here. And then put the other pair of pliers on the other side of the opening and just give it a twist. It's kind of hard to demonstrate with these because these are 6 millimeter and they're very tiny. They don't need to be too big. Okay, pliers on one side, other pliers on the other side. There's my little opening right there. Give it a twist and perfectly open jump ring. The other thing that you can do is hold it with 1 pair of pliers on one side of the opening and then just push down with your thumb. And again, perfectly open pair of jump rings or jump ring, just 1, not a pair. So that again, push down with my thumb. And there we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. Those are open. Let's leave those there for now because I need to cut my chain. So I'm going to, again, estimate what I have. Each of my jump rings is 6 millimeter, which is approximately 1/8 of an inch. Not very much space at all. So that's going to take me up to about 1.5 inches. So I've got 1.5 inches for my centerpiece. My wrist is 7.5. So I'm going to need another 6 inches of 6 inches of chain, which is going to be too much because on the other end of that, I need 2 more jump rings and a closed jump ring. So that's going to add another 1/4 of an inch or so on each side. So that's going to be another 1/2 inch, but it's better to go ahead and cut a little bit more than you need than not have enough for what you need. I know just from experience that I'm going to need about 2.5 inches on each side of my focal piece to finish this after I get everything together. Where you can see. After I get everything together. But for right now, just to be safe, I'm going to go ahead and cut a 6-inch piece of wire or a 5.5-inch piece of wire. Chain. And then I'm going to cut that 5.5-inch piece in half. So let's find my center here. And we're over. And another way you can do this is just count the rings. You can count the rings and go from there. 3, It'll be one link off no matter what I do. So I must have an even number of links. That's close. Let's cut that right there at that middle link. And make sure they're both the same. And that I don't need to cut a link off, which sometimes happens. Yes, I can cut one link off of this side because you can see it's just one link too long on this side. No biggie. Snip that off. Rid of the offending link. And now I'm ready to put some things together. So I'm going to take my jump rings. I'm going to attach, and I like security. So, and by that I mean I like to use 2 jump rings to attach my chain to my focal piece instead of just one. That way I know that if one fails, I have a backup. So I'm going to take one jump ring, attach it to my centerpiece, and then add the chain to that jump ring as well. So I'm going to attach the last link on one end of my chain to my jump ring and close it. Make sure it's firmly closed. Then I'm going to take a second jump ring. I'm going to slide that on my focal piece and then also attach that to my chain. Now make sure you don't get it caught up in that other jump ring. They need to be separate. I'm just going to bring that around and attach that to the last link of that chain and close it up. So there's one side all nicely attached. Let's do the other side. Grab a jump ring. Slide it on my focal loop. Grab my chain and slide that last link into the loop and close the link. What happened? Slid right off. Oh, you know what? I did not get that link off. I thought I wrestled that off of there, but apparently the one that I cut did not come off. Okay, no problem. Back again. And put my chain up. So I need to reopen my jump ring. It's already open, partially open. And slide on that last link. Slide that last link onto my jump ring. Close my jump ring. Make sure it's nicely closed. Both of the edges are close, as close as I can get them together. Grab my other jump ring and slide that onto my focal loop, bring it around and slide it through my last link of chain. Again, making sure that my other jump ring does not get caught in this jump ring. They are 2 separate holding pieces. Make sure that my ends are together, nice and tight, and there we go. Okay, so I got that on. So now what I want to do is check on my arm and see where I am with my length. Oops. I'm going to be able to let you see this because, of course, it's underneath. So just so you know, see if I can turn it over so that you can see. the ends are almost together, not quite. And they don't need to be together because my clasp is going to take up a good 3/4 of an inch. I think I have one sitting over here somewhere, an example that's not on the bracelet. So this is going to take up a good 3/4 of an inch of the length that I need. So if these ends are almost together on my arm, I know I have more than enough because I still need to add 2 jump rings on each side, 2 open jump rings, and 1 closed jump ring. That is going to add another good at least 1/2 inch to my length on each side. So that's going to give me another inch. And this is going to take an inch. So I don't need this much. I know for my measurement that I only need 2.5 inches. So you need to measure your arm and determine from there how much you need. But I would really advise that you cut more chain than you need so you can cut off what you don't need when you're finished. And that way you don't have too short a chain. Okay, so I'm going to cut it down to 2.5 inches, which is what I know I need for my bracelet. Not very much. Not cutting off much at all. Nice. Nice not to have to lose it. All right. That's all I really need to cut off is 3 loops on each side. Makes life easy. Make sure I got those pieces off. And they're not hanging around like that other one was. Yes, good. Now it's time to put my other jump rings on. So again, I need to open up some jump rings. So I want 2 open ones on each side and 1 closed one on each side. So I'm going to open my jump rings, slide that on the last link of my chain, and add my closed jump ring. There we go. Then I'm going to close up my jump ring, nice and tight. And I'm going to grab a second open jump ring and open it. And slide that on my closed ring. And that last link of my chain. Make sure the other one doesn't get caught in there. And close. You don't want it to get caught in there with the other one because it's not going to work properly if it does. So now I have 2 nice secure rings holding my closed ring, which is going to be used to accommodate my clasp. Let's open these other 2 jump rings. This one, here's the other one. Okay. Open that up. Slide that on the last link of my chain. Add my closed jump ring. Really? Slide that on the last link of my chain. We'll pretend like that didn't happen. Add my closed jump ring. And close it up. The reason that you open the jump ring the way you do is because if you pull the ring apart, you ruin the shape of it. And it's kind of really almost impossible to get it back in its round shape again once you've done that. So this way, if I just twist it open, then I can just squeeze it closed without too much maneuvering. I'm going to slide this on my closed jumper ring again. And in that last length of my chain, oops, get over there. And close. Very nice. So there we go. This is the primary part of my bracelet. At this point, I would measure, see where we are. Very good. I have about ½ an inch of space there, maybe a little more than ¼ inch of space. I don't like mine too tight. Maybe a quarter to ½ an inch of space. I know that my clasp that I'm going to make is going to take up a good 3/4 of an inch. So that is just perfect. Now for the clasp. Grab some 20 gauge wire. You need to I'm making a double S. That's what I call it. Because it's got an S in the center and it's an S on the outside. I call it a double S. I don't think that's what it's called. I just call it that. Okay, so for this, I need about 3 inches. 3 inches of wire. Snip that off. 20 gauge wire, because you want your clasp to be nice and sturdy. Straighten that out a little bit. It's got a lot of kinks in it. Goodness gracious. Pliers to these little kinky things out. I don't like to straighten them out too much because it's going to be all curved up anyway, so why bother? So what I want to do is find the center of my wire. Wires here. I grab this, find the center of my wire, which is about 1.5 inches. And I'm going to slide my wire down. Let's measure that halfway. Slide my wire down. I don't need too big a loop in the center. So I'm going about halfway down my pliers, and it really depends on how big you want your loops to be, your little center part of your S to be. But I've got 3 inches here. I'm going to, by the time I finished, it'll be about 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to go halfway down my pliers with my wire, and I'm going to take 1/2 of my wire and then the tail over the side, and the other half, I'm going to wrap that around the other side. So one's going to be going one direction, and the other one's going to be going the other direction, just like that. And without opening my pliers, I'm going to slide my wire off so that now I have my little Superman S, is what I like to call it. Actually, it's some kind of a symbol, and I don't know what it is. Doesn't matter. Okay. I need about 3/4 to 7/8, and this is exactly 7/8. It always happens that one side is exactly 7/8 and the other is a little longer, which is fine because I can cut the other one off. I need about 7/8 from this the end of my design in order to make my loop. And I have exactly 7/8 on this side. The other side, let's check it out. What have I got? It never fails. The other side is always 1/8 bigger. So I need to snip off about 1/8 of an inch on this side. Every time. Snip off that 1/8 of an inch, and it's too small for me. I don't like to put my finger over that because If it's really high powered, it can go right through my finger. So instead, I will put it down in this little thing with a little well and snip it off. And it just falls right down in there where I can put it to the side. Now let's measure again. 7/8 and 7/8. How do you like that? Now I'm going to make my little S, my little hook. So what I'm going to do, and my hook is going to go this way and this way. So this long edge is going to be where the hook's going to be. So what I'm going to do is make a tiny loop going in the opposite direction. Just a really small 3/4 loop. It doesn't need to be closed. So I'm just going to take the tip of my pliers, grab the tip of my wire, and make a loop. And I like to hold it like this to give myself some leverage, because if I try to do it in space, it will keep fighting me. So I'm just going to make a 3/4 loop. It's about 3/4. I don't want to close it all the way. And then I'm going to take my flat pliers and I'm going to squeeze the tip towards the top. So this little open part down here where the tip is, I'm going to squeeze it up towards the top of my wire, just so I can make it into a tiny little nub. The easiest way to do that is not to try to squeeze it all at once, because the wire will bend. Just give it some little taps until you get it down to the size that you want. And it doesn't have to be that big, because it needs to fit through this loop so that you can close it up. Let's give it another couple little taps, get it as small as I can. That looks good. Then I'm going to take my pliers. I'm going to slide my wire, the loop of my wire. This is the top of my pliers, and this is the bottom of my pliers, and my loop is going to hang over the bottom of my pliers, like so. I'm going to bring it as close to the back as I can get, back here to the largest part of my pliers, clamp down, and then I'm going to make a loop, get on there, going in the direction, this is the long edge. I'm going to make a loop going away from, a big loop going away from the small loop. And I'm wrapping away from the actual loop that's hanging down to make a shepherd's hook. I'm just going to wrap that around until that little tiny hook meets the rest of the wire. There we go. There's 1/2 of my shepherd's hook. Then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, this is the long edge. I want to wrap, make a tiny loop that's going in the direction of this loop that's down here. So it's going to be going in the direction of the other large loop that you just made. So again, I'm going to grab the tip of my wire with the tip of my pliers. I'm going to demonstrate what I mean about trying to do this without leverage. See, it doesn't like that, because you've got round pliers and round wire, and it's going to go, nope. Nope. So your best bet is to hold on to it. And I know that means you can't see very well what I'm doing, but just hold on to it with your finger. Just rest your finger there until you've got at least a little bit of a loop so that you have some leverage. And even then, it might run away from you. So I've got my turn started. And I'm just going to continue. See, it's biting me all the way until I have a 3/4 loop. Yeah, until I have a 3/4 loop. And once I've got it started, it's a little easier to keep it in control. And I just keep looking at it every couple of turns. There we go. Got my nice little 3/4 loop. And I'm going to take my flat pliers. I'm going to squeeze that opening part, that open part down here towards the top of my loop. Nice and easy, easy breezy, until I have a little nub, a little bit more. There. And the only way you can do that is this way, because this little nub is too small for even the tip of your round nose pliers to go in. This is the only way I know how to do it. So then I grab my round nose pliers, I slide my wire down almost to the back. Here's the loop. It's hanging over what I call the bottom of my pliers. And the flat part is at the top. And there's two ways you can do this. You can either wrap with your plier hand towards the long edge, or you can hold with your plier hand and bring the wire up. Either way, I wrap with my plier hand because if I bring the wire up from here, at some point you won't be able to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to bring my wire all the way down to the back of my pliers before it gets to this squared off part. And I'm going to rotate my pliers until the top of my loop touches the rest of my wire. And I'm going to pull it out. And look, that lovely little hook that I have there. Isn't that just the cutest thing you ever saw? I love these. They're fun to make, they're easy to make, and you don't have to worry about whether you're left or right-handed. Why? Because it's a separate piece to your piece of jewelry. You can hook it on either way. I can put it on one side and then fasten it on my arm on the other side. If I'm right-handed, I can put it on the right side and fasten it on my arm on the left side. But if I'm left-handed, I can put it on the left side and fasten it on my arm on the right side. So this is probably one of the most brilliantly thought up. I don't know who thought up this type of clasp, but I absolutely love it. And there, ladies and gents, is our station bracelet. I don't know anything. I say this a lot. I don't know what could be simpler. But really, this is very easy to make and so pretty. And I've got my little rose on one side. I've got my little, what looks like a little wave on the other side. Both lovely. I should put it on. I think I will. I think I will put on my bracelet. Yay. Okay, so let's see where the opening is here. There we go. And get on there. Oh, and you know what? I did it. It is the perfect fit. I love it. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, you know it is. It's a no, it's fine. I don't like mine to be too loose. I usually like mine a little tighter. But this is good because it's a focal piece. There's my little clasp. Isn't that pretty? And there's my, and if it flips over, it looks one way. If it flips over the other way, it looks like that. Either way, it's pretty. And that was kind of a fluke, just because I had some leftover wire. So there you go. Just go ahead and work with, if you have leftover wire, do something with it. Make a spiral, something like that. Ooh, pretty, pretty, pretty. I can just see taking several of these up my arm. That is so pretty, it really is. Okay, anyway, I could just sit here and admire my handiwork for a very long time, but I won't do that because that's boring. So anyway, that is our program for today, ladies and gents. I hope you enjoyed it. I did. This isn't fastened, so I can't hold it up. I enjoyed it immensely when I just fasten it, Virginia. I am going to enjoy wearing these because they're very light. This is embarrassing. This is always the part that I hate, trying to fasten my things on camera without making a complete fool of myself. But anyway, this is really neat because these beads are very lightweight. They aren't heavy at all. And I don't want to wear something heavy at this time of year. It's 90 degrees in the shade, for heaven's sake. I can't see because I don't have my glasses on. Obviously, because the hook is the other direction. Virginia, Virginia. There we go. So there are my bracelets. Aren't those pretty? They're so lightweight, you can barely feel them. And I've got my clasps on the other side that are just as pretty. They don't look like just some function. They actually have a design all of their own. That's it. We're finished for this particular tutorial. I hope you liked it. Please let me know. Those of you who get kits are going to be able to choose which one of these you want to make, or you can make them both because I'm going to give you enough for both. I hope you like it. If you have any questions or comments or feedback of any kind, please feel free to email me at jewelrygen20@gmail.com. That's JEWELRYGIN20@gmail.com. I am getting a few people that are asking me questions, which I absolutely love. Please feel free to do that. Please also send me pictures. I love to see pictures, and I love to share them with the DeKalb County Library. They're the ones that make all of these videos and tutorials possible for me to share with you. So if you wouldn't mind sending pictures, it would be great, so I can post it on the Facebook page. And the Friends Council, that is the one that gives us the funds to do this particular program, would love to see it. And that makes everybody very happy. So let us know what you think. Send me an email. Put a comment on the library Facebook page if you would like to. I need to write down the library Facebook page. I think it's just facebook.com/DeKalb Library. I think that's it, and it should come up. And if you want to put a comment on there about the program, Jewelry with Jen is what it's called, or something like that, or if you want to look at more of the tutorials that you may not have seen, just scroll down. They're all there for the last 2 years. It's kind of awesome. Enough rambling. Have a good week. Have a good weekend. If this is your time of year that it's very hot like it is for me, which is why I have this lovely fan sitting right here, please be careful, drink lots of water, and be careful of going out. and being in the sun, because it can be a little dangerous and we want you to be safe. Okay? Until next time, enjoy the week and the weekend, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.